everybody, welcome or welcome back to the channel. My name's Nicole and this is Dusty Book Sniffers, and today I am here for the August wrap up, so let's get started. Everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending it with me while I prattle on about some of the books that I have read in the month of August. It was a pretty epic month for me for August. I did Arc August and I read a lot of books for that, and you'll see videos as they are edited and come out for that. But I also did PickPongAthon along with a few other things as well. Alright, so we had a buddy read, which is a separate video, and that was the Poppy War buddy read. That I've now finished those books and I've talked about them. You'll get to see that video. I'm not entirely sure. Once it's edited, it'll go out as soon as possible. So you'll have all my thoughts on that, although they are very jumbled, but you'll have my thoughts on that. And then we had PickPongAthon, which I read. We had the prompts for those, so I'm going to go through those books that I read, and then I did some bonus ones. You've also seen some of the books that I read in the month of August for Can We Trust vlog, so you can go and check that up. All the videos, if they're already published, will be down below, and I'll give you an estimated date of when the other videos are coming out. Now, to keep a track of all the things that are happening, the best thing for you to do is hit that subscribe button and change it to all notifications, and then that way you're not going to miss out on anything. And while I'm talking about subscribing, don't forget to go over to the like button and give this video a thumbs up as well. PickPongAthon, we had 3 co-hosts for each team, and we threw the ball or the cork or the bottle top into the cups, and we had the prompts, and the prompts were given to us prior to the event getting fully underway. So in the first day or so we got all our prompts, so we were able to pick our books and all that sort of stuff. All right, I was away when it started, so I got off to a bit of a late start. All right, so I have my list of prompts up here because I film on my phone and it makes it very difficult to read stuff on my phone if I'm using it. So I've got it up here, so if I'm looking away, it's just because I'm looking over at the prompts. Now, the first prompt was to read a 5-star prediction. Now, I absolutely love and adore Luann G. Smith. She has written the Vine Witch series, which has got the Vine Witch, the Glamourist, and the Conjurer, and then the Conspiracy of Magic series, which is a Raven Spell, Raven Song. Okay, that's a duology, and basically you can find her books over on Kindle Unlimited, and that's how I discovered her. Now, she's got a new series that's come out, and it's The Order of the 7 Stars, and I picked this book to be a 5-star book because just about, I think all of them have been 4.5-star to 5-star reads. I love her witchy vibes that she gives. The storylines are absolutely wonderful, and and this one was actually mentioned in the Conjurer, in the last book in the which was the Vine Witch series, and I knew that this series was coming out. So this is her latest one, and it is called The Witch's Lens, and basically we're following Petra. It's around the First World War, I think. Yes, World War One, and we're following Petra. She is a witch. Most witches have been taken to the war to help fight in the war and all that sort of stuff, but she's managed to stay under the radar, and basically we're following her story, and it's called The Witch's Lens is because she can actually see people that have passed through her camera, and subsequently some things go down and she ends up on the war front, and she's been recruited to help with some of the undead, to find out why and who is bringing them back, and why the people are struggling to win the war and all that sort of stuff. So that's pretty much the first one and what it's set up. This was a 4.5-star read for me. It wasn't quite a 5-star, but I predicted it to be up there. However, I did end up reading the second one for it, and this ended up being a 5-star read for me. Again, where it's continuing on, we're finding more about her background, her father, her parents, and all that sort of stuff, and all the magic that she possesses and why she possesses it, and where it's going to go from here. I don't know. I don't know how many books are in the series. I believe at this point there are definitely 3, but there are so many unanswered questions right now, but it's kept me very intrigued. Like, I cannot wait for the next one. This one's only just come out, so I cannot wait for the next one to come out, so I can find out what how Petra's story is going to go. Again, we're still set in around that misfit group of witches and different things that they're doing and people that they've come across, and as I said, we're finding out a lot of Petra's backstory and why she is the witch that she is and what her powers are actually capable of. So it's a very interesting story. Absolutely loving it. If you're looking for some Halloweeny sort of books that have that sort of fall vibe, definitely pick up Luann G. Smith. Any of her books will fit that. I've read all of her books now and absolutely love them. I own all of her books as well. She is an independent author, and so it's really good to, I like to support her. I pay a little bit extra for her books, but I don't mind. They're great stories. They're books that I will pick up probably again in 12 months to 2 years time, and revisit them. If you don't want to purchase her books, they are available on Kindle Unlimited, and I believe all of them actually here in Australia come with the audio as well, so you can check that out. But as I said, this one I gave 4.5. This one I gave 5 stars. Absolutely loved both of them. Enjoyed my time in them. So I'm up to date with that series, which is absolutely fabulous. I love being up to date and not behind. The name of this series, just in case you have forgotten or I didn't say it, is The Order of the 7 Stars. And as I said, we first met The Order of the 7 Stars in The Conjurer in the Vine Witch series. But anybody that loves witchy stories and vibes and all that sort of stuff will definitely love these books as well. Highly recommend them. All right. You will start to see a bit of a theme happening with the books that I've read in August as well. The next one was to read 2 standalone books. Now, I read The Blue Maidens and Cicada Springs. These were both off NetGalley, and you can see the covers there. I'm not going to talk too much about these because I'm actually talking about these books in my NetGalley diary, so you will get to hear about those. But The Blue Maidens, that was a bit of a miss for me, and the Cicada Springs, that was actually quite good. I'm really enjoying stories at the moment where the main protagonist is around my age, so late 40s, early 50s. I have been coming across a few stories with the main protagonist. This one was just a general fiction book. Generally, those sort of books I get off NetGalley are generally called either general fiction or women's fic, which I don't really like that label, but it is what it is. And so Cicada Springs was a sort of like a coming of age story, but not, okay, because just refinding yourself, where you come to that point that you're an empty nester and all that sort of stuff, and you're trying to find who you are as not as a full-time mum anymore, or a full-time wife, or all that sort of stuff. So that's what that's centered around. But if you want to hear more about that, as I said, hit that subscribe button, make it to all notifications, and then that way you're not going to miss out on any of the books that I talk about, because I do have a series called the NetGalley Diaries, and any books that I read from that go into that into those vlogs, so you can go and check that out. And hopefully by the time you see this video, that video will be out and it'll be linked up down below. But just go and check out the playlist for the NetGalley Diaries. All right, the next one was to read a book 400 pages or more. Now, I must say, I will just jump back a little bit. This one was part of a punishment because we came in last, so I had to read an extra book, so that's why I ended up just going with that one. The next one I read, as I said, it had to be over 400 pages, and I continued on with another series. This is the 3rd book in the Woody Creek series. It's by Joy Detman. It is a historical fiction, and it is going through the decades, and we're following Jenny Morrison, and this one is 1946 we're set in. So we've already gone through where we met her, and then the second one, and this is the 3rd one. And basically I can't really talk about it too much. except it's pretty much just following Jenny Morrison's life, and she had a traumatic event that happened to her in the first book, and this is actually shown that like push the storyline. Now Joy Detman, she's a wonderful writer, and I don't really know how to explain this, and this sounds really bad, but you know when you read a book and there's a whole lot of nothing but it's a whole lot of something? That's what Joy Detman is. She just knows how to spin a yarn in a way that you're so entrenched in the story you can't put it down. But there's not a ton of stuff happening. It is like a day-to-day life, slice of life, whatever you want to call it. It is the day-to-day life and the turmoils and the trauma and all the things that Jenny's going through and her surrounding family are in these books. And we've got some wonderful characters in this as well. I'm actually immersive reading these, so I've got the audio as well, which I've been able to get on my borrow box here at my local library. The whole series is on there. So if you're in Australia and you've got Borrow Box, you'll be able to read these. Just know that when you go into it, there's a whole lot of stuff happening, and we're just going through the day-to-day life, but the story is so well written and the characters are so well developed that you just can't put it down. Like, I am so in love with this series is the only way to put it, that I just want to keep picking it up. And I almost picked up the fourth book in this, but I knew that if I picked it up I would keep going in the story because I just wanted to know more. You know, we've got Granny in her grandmother in this, we've got, you know, estranged parents in this, we've got you know, partners that don't like people, and then we've got, you know, no good characters. We've just got a really great cast of characters, and that's all I'm really going to say about this. I've actually given this a 4.75 star rating. Absolutely loved it. Can't wait to get back to it. I have 5 of the 8 books on my shelf, so I will be getting back to it, and I'm trying to find the rest of them because these absolutely are going to stay on my shelf because I absolutely love them. And I just like to say thank you to Chrissy, my good friend Chrissy. Gives me so many great Australian author recommendations, and this was one of them. I was introduced to Joy Detman last year in August, where Chrissy picked my TBR, which she has also done for this one, but I'm just trying to get all the books together at the moment, so it's actually going over into September, maybe October, because I was a little bit running behind the 8 ball in the month of August. So I'm hoping to get them. She's currently reading the TBR that I picked for her. So I've had a lot of fun reading these, and I cannot wait to get back to the next one. They call to me every time I walk past them, but you know, you got other priorities and all the rest of it. But if you haven't heard of Joy Detman before, she has some collections of short stories. She's got short novels. She has this series. I have quite a number of her books on my shelf now, and I absolutely love her style of writing and just the way she can spin a yarn and really draw you into that story and keep you there. Like, I read these books pretty much in one sitting. Like, the second book I started reading in the car. I got to my destination. I didn't want to get out of the car. I had to turn it off. Then I listened to it on the way home. Then I come home and I sat on the couch and read the rest of it, and read it all in one day. I think it was like 500-600 page book. They're all chunky books. This one is a 528 page book. So definitely met the criteria for over 400 pages. So yeah, check out Joy Detman if you like historical fiction and Australian authors and you are looking for an Australian author. I highly recommend Joy Detman. Definitely got more books of hers to buy to put on my shelf. Absolutely loved it. All right, the next one was to read a book. Again, this is a book that is a NetGalley book, so you'll hear more about it, but it's called Dead Animals. This is a one that I've got a feeling that might end up on the Women's Prize for Fiction. That's why I was drawn to it. It's following the story of a young girl that went to a party. She's woken up the next day and she's got gaps in her memory, and she's got bruises and cuts all over her. And it is a sapphic romance style book as well. And basically, she meets a girl who says that the same thing has happened to her, and then the story ensues after that, and we find out what revenge they exact on the young lad that did these things to them. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It wasn't a absolutely phenomenal read. It had all the elements for a women's prize for fiction book in it. It had trauma, it had all the things. And basically this one I had to read because it had animals on the cover and it was green. No, sorry, it had to be green. Sorry, it was color picked, not because it had animals on the cover. It's called Den Animals. So yeah, so basically I read that. You'll hear more about that in that vlog, so make sure that you check that one out. All right, the next one I needed to pick was can't even read my own writing here. Disability rep. Okay, so I needed to have a think about this, and I ended up asking my fellow co-hosts if they had any ideas. And then I remembered that The Secret Garden was one of the books that I wanted to read this year. I read this when I was a kid and all that sort of stuff, and it was also one of the classics I wanted to go back to and revisit. This is my special edition cloth-bound one. This is by Puffin Books. I've got several of these kids' classics from Puffin Books that have the beautiful covers on them. Absolutely adore this book. If you don't know what The Secret Garden is, like a lot of classics that are centered around for kids, you know, we have a child that either has lost their parents or has had some sort of trauma and they've ended up living with a relative and whatnot. And that is definitely the case for the young girl in this. And for the life of me, what is her name? Mary. My grandmother's name. You think I'd remember that? Anyway, I've read this to my kids. I've read it when I was younger. It was probably one of my, it wasn't my absolute favorite when I was younger, but it was up there along with Black Beauty, Anne of Green Gables, and The Chronicles of Narnia. And I really just love this one because it's got a found family. We have a secret garden. We have children out on their own doing their thing and not a lot of adults around to keep them in check and all that sort of stuff. And you know, that was very much my life when I was younger. You know, I found friends that I used to go off into the bush with, and we create a world of our own and, you know, have cubby houses and all that sort of stuff. And this, while it's a garden and all that sort of stuff, has those vibes, but we also have like a found family situation because Mary has lost her parents to a cholera outbreak in India, and she's been shipped back to the UK, where she's now living with her uncle, and her uncle has had trauma in his life where his wife had died from a tragic accident, and the secret garden was actually her garden. And there is also a child that is neglected in this, which is the son of the uncle, and hence that is Mary's cousin. They meet, and the story just goes from there. He is told that, you know, he has not a very strong constitution. He is very grumpy. The cousin, that is, not Mary. Mary's feeling very lost, and subsequently they find each other. And then there's this other character who is her maid's brother, and he basically is there, and he has an affinity with animals and plants and nature and all that sort of stuff. And together the trio, the first off we start out with Mary and the maid's which I always forget his name. I do not know why I forget his name. I've read this enough times to know. So Dickon is the name of the character that I always forget. And Colin is the cousin. So I have all the names now. So we have Mary, Dickon, and Colin. And the story is very much centered around them. But it's just a lovely story of how Mary was basically orphaned. She's ended up back with her uncle. Her uncle is distraught about the death of his family, of his wife, and subsequently he neglects his son and all that sort of stuff. And Mary helps Colin to come out of his shell, to become more palatable as a human, and Dickon also helps them to become more palatable as humans as well. And just the fun that they have and how they encourage each other to become better people. And I just really love that about this. And as I said, it's found family as well. And you know, to be honest, I secretly wanted to have this garden when I was younger, that place of wonderment and all that sort of stuff. And I think when I think about it, like every time I read this book, it just takes me back to the things that my grandmother taught me about, you know, animals and herbs and all that sort of stuff. And it just takes me back in the thoughts of having that garden and all that sort of stuff. So it's nice to go back and have those nostalgic reads. And I absolutely love it. If you haven't read this, it's a quick and easy read. And, you know, read it to your kids, get them involved, get them using their imagination. You know, the whole thing around Dickon and him being able to have that affinity with animals and stuff like that. It's just such a wonderful book to read. I give this 5 stars every time I read it. Absolutely love it. Probably revisit it again in a couple of years with Mia. I think she'll really enjoy it too. She loves doing gardening and all that sort of stuff, so it'll be right up her alley as well. So that was for Disability Rep. And the reason that I went with Disability Rep is because Colin is actually in a wheelchair for the majority of the story. He can barely walk or anything like that because he's been told that he is one day going to die, that he doesn't have a strong constitution, that he has a hump on his back. Now, no one's ever directly told him this. This is all stuff that he has overheard the adults around him talking about. And it makes him not a very nice person. And Mary helps him to become a better person. So that's why I used it for Disability Rep. Absolutely love it. Highly recommend it. Pick it up and enjoy it for what it is. All right. The next one was to read a book that has been on your TBR for a long time. Now, I've got tons of books on my shelf. I've got my Audible and all that sort of stuff. So what I did is I went to my Goodreads and I went to my Want to Read shelf and I went right to the bottom, and A Secret History of Witches was on there by Louisa Morgan. Now, this is a very interesting book. When I say I love the cover, absolutely beautiful. I put it on my Instagram and the author actually commented as well, and so I was pretty excited about that. But this is basically following the tale of a group of witches of generations. So it's a tale of family, sacrifice, love and magic. It is set in 1821 and it is after a grandmother loses her life to saving her family of witches. They basically gypsies, and it's in Brittany. And it basically then just follows each of the witches subsequently that come after the grandmother passes away. That's how we start the story out. And it is very much a story of mother and daughter as well, because every witch that has been born, they don't necessarily have the power that the grandmother had until we finally get to the last witch, and then we start to see some power coming through. But they use their power for pretty much for self-gain and the consequences that come from that, you know, to find love and all that sort of stuff. So we have some that are so much in love, and then we've got others that are, you know, used it for status and all that sort of stuff. So we're going through the timeline. It's not short stories, but it feels like we're getting a short story of each of the witches that we follow through this. And we go from 1821 right up to World War II. So it is a generational thing, and basically I absolutely fell into this. I read it in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. Absolutely adored it. Subsequently closed the book and bought her next book. I love her writing style. I love the way she was able to spin the history into the story as well. I love the witchy elements of it. I love the fact that we cover the things of, you know, the consequences of magic and all that sort of stuff. We've also got a witch hunters in this as well, and how they perceive magic and all of that sort of stuff in it. And just, you know, just how they sort of keep to themselves and how their lives play out and all that sort of stuff, and the lengths that some of the witches will go to find love and to all have children. So I highly recommend this if you're into witchy sort of books and like a little bit of a history. It's definitely a history of witches. And Louisa Morgan just did a fabulous job of spinning the history into the tale of these witches, and I highly recommend it. I actually gave this a 4.75 rating. And am looking forward to reading A Witch's Kind, I think it's called. And again, we're following some witches and their history and all the things from that. So that one was a great read. All right. So as I said earlier, there were a couple of books that I read. So Horror Store, Neon Gods, and The Library of the Unwritten. They are all in a separate vlog. So if you want to see what I thought about those, that is in the Can We Trust Brianna from Four Paws on a Book video. That'll be linked up down below so you can see what those books were about. So that was recommended by a friend and one with a map in it, and Neon Gods with a female main character, because these ones were the next 10 prompts that Crystal threw. So I done all the 9, and they're the books that I talked about. So the ones that I just mentioned, you can go and check those out. I'm not going to talk about them here. The next one that I'm going to talk about is a Irish bookshop murder. This is a NetGalley one. This is also going to be in my NetGalley vlog, so you can go and check that out. That's what the cover looks like. So the next book that I'm going to talk about as well is this one, which is called The Witching Hour, and this was for an odd number of pages, and I read this in the month of August. Actually read it in the last 2 weeks of August, and I could not put it down. Now, talking about history interwoven into a story, Anne Rice, this is my first soiree into the Anne Rice universe, and I can honestly say that I absolutely adored this book. I've given it 4.5-star rating. There is so much that happens in this book, but basically we are following the Mayfair Witches. This is also a TV series as well. The series 1 is out here in Australia, and I believe it is on iView, ABC iView here in Australia, and also you can buy it on Prime. Someone said it was on Netflix, but I couldn't find it on Netflix here in Australia. So this is a very chunky book. It has 1,207 pages in it, so it definitely met the criteria for odd number of pages. It sort of went above and beyond what I needed to read, but 1,200 pages of pure goodness. So we are following the Mayfair Witches and their dark and disturbed history, and we first meet them in New Orleans, where we meet Deidre, who is, and a doctor who is giving her injections, and Deidre is a little bit mentally unstable, you're led to believe. We also meet her sister, Carlotta, I think her name was, and she is very religious and all that sort of stuff. And so we start to get this like history. We also meet Michael, who he drowned, and Rowan saved him and brought him back, and subsequently he now has this power where he can pick things up, objects, and he can get the history of the object and all that sort of stuff. And he wants to meet Rowan, who is a and I want to say she is a neurologist. Neurosurgeon is what she is. So yeah, so basically, and she is living away from New Orleans. She has never lived in New Orleans. She's never been to the Mayfair Witch's house or anything, and they have this legacy. As long as they use the Mayfair last name, they will inherit this legacy, and that legacy is the house, the money, all the things. And so basically we've met them, and then we go into, and that's sort of in part 1, and Michael and Rowan then eventually meet after his accident because he wants to meet her. He's drinking heavily, all that sort of stuff, and they fall in love. And then we go into part 2, and part 2 is so in-depth. It has so much history about the Mayfair Witches, and we have the Talamasca, I think is how you pronounce it. They are a group of people that are following the witches, and they meet the witches back right at the beginning, where the first witch was burnt at the stake, and subsequently they rescued the daughter, and then we start to follow the Mayfair Witches. And so subsequently we're getting all this information about the different witches that have come through, all female, all have, you know, done something with magic and all that sort of stuff. Now, at this point, I am going to say this is a very incestuous book, okay? There is a lot of incest in this book. It is very much a theme through it. If you do not like it, you are not going to like this book, okay? If you have trouble reading about that, you are not going to like this book. It is a common theme through this book. It's very incestuous. We do have father sleeping, having sexual relations with the daughter, having children, all that sort of stuff. So just be aware that that is the case in this. It is very relevant to the line. It's not in there for shock value or anything like that. It is very relevant to the plot and the storyline and all that sort of stuff. So that being said, we get a lot of that in the history part of it, where we're finding out what these people are doing. There is also mention of uncles having relations with their nieces and stuff like that, and children being a product of that, and also like rape basically as well. So if you don't like that sort of stuff, you're definitely not going to like this book. But that being said, I don't have a problem reading about that, and I just thoroughly, like, it threw me, it put me off at the first. Like, I'm like, wow, did not see that coming. But it is very much part of the plot, and it's not thrown in there for shock value, okay? So just be aware of that. And I thoroughly enjoyed the history part of it, learning about the Mayfair witches, learning what they had done, what others hadn't done, who was powerful, who wasn't, and all that sort of stuff. And all the while you're learning what their legacy is and whatnot. Now, there is a character in this book called Lasher, and the second book is named after him. He is a malevolent being that basically torments the Mayfair witches, and he, in the same aspect as tormenting them, he is in love with them because they are going to be able to do something for him. You don't necessarily know what that is. You do subsequently find out what that is, but that's not a spoiler because that's just the progression of the story. There are some weird bits in it in the last part of the book that I'm like, interesting. I wouldn't have gone that route, and it was hard to imagine what was playing out in the scenario and all that sort of stuff. But it's so, like, even though it's 1,200 pages, it is so well worth your time. I encourage you to get the audiobook if you don't like sitting down and reading long ones. The audiobook is absolutely fabulous. I have the audiobook because I got it from my husband. And so I did some immersive reading to help me to stay focused to get through it and all the rest of it. It wasn't because I was losing focus in the story or anything like that. I was just doing a lot in August. And so it was really good to just sit down and fall into the book and thoroughly enjoy it. So yeah, so as I said, it is a really good book. It does have some triggers, so just be aware of that. And I hope that some of you pick this up because in October, and you read it during the month of September, in October, Jess Coda and I will be reading Lasher, which is the second book in the Mayfair Fair, and subsequently we'll be going on to the last one, which is called Tautos, and that character hasn't come into it yet, so I don't know who that character is. So yeah, so I'm super excited to read more of Anne Rice, and I'm super excited now to get into the Vampire Chronicles as well, which Anne Rice wrote back in the day. This book is 30 odd years old, so yeah, but I have a new copy because Coda for my birthday brought me the trilogy, so I have brand new books now so I can continue on with the series. I'm absolutely delighted that I have those because I was trying to find a secondhand copy of it. So I'm going to send this back to the secondhand bookshop, and that way someone else can pick it up and enjoy it. But that is it. I've got to the end. Every other book that I have read will be on the NetGalley Diaries, and or I've already talked about it. But it was a pretty epic month. I'm pretty happy with all the things that I got read. I ended up reading what have we got there, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 books for the month for PickPongAthon, which was absolutely fabulous. I actually read a lot more than that because I have, you know, NetGalley books that I read. Some of them were cookbooks and craft books and a couple of other novels and all that sort of stuff. So keep an eye out for that. I just like to say thank you so much for joining me. And as I said earlier, if you liked the content that you've seen here today, I don't normally do these sort of wrap-ups. I normally just do like weekly vlogs and all that sort of stuff, but August just got away from me with the PickPongAthon and everything else that was going on, birthdays and all that sort of stuff and being away. So if you like this sort of stuff, make sure you hit that subscribe button, set it to all notifications, then that way you're not going to miss out on anything. And don't forget to hit the like button. And if you like my content, consider coming over and joining our Patreon, where you'll get extra sorts of things like this and spoiler vlogs and all that sort of stuff, book clubs and all the things. Come over, check it all out. All the information is there, and consider joining us over there and helping us build the community. But as I said, that is it from me today. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and don't forget, keep turning those pages, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.